Hi, this is Megha Joshi, the host of the Boardroom Zen podcast. This show is created for the ambitious business leaders. Are you someone wanting to play big? Want to possess a strong brand and executive presence that makes you belong in every room you walk into? And all of this without putting your personal life on hold? If the answer to those questions is yes, then you are in the right place. In this show, I sit down with best-in-class leaders to distill their wisdom while sharing what helped me stand out as a Fortune 100 executive. So let's get started. I just want to say that I'm here today not to share other people's stories, but really share my own story about my struggle with self-bias. Because like anybody else, no matter how confident I look on the outside, on the inside, we all have those limiting beliefs. And I've struggled with many in my own journey. Many years ago, when I was a senior director at a Fortune 100 corporation, one fine day, I learned that I was invited to a meeting with the bigwigs in the boardroom. And I had never been to that meeting before. I never got a chance to be there. So here I was really excited to have that opportunity. So the meeting was the following day. That morning, I woke up, I got dressed up in my best attire. I was ready to go. I was super prepared. I walked into the boardroom few minutes early because I wanted to read the room and I wanted to make myself comfortable. So as I went into the boardroom, I took a spot on the board table and I actually intentionally positioned myself to sit further away from the head of the table spot because I knew a women executive, actually a very legendary women executive who ran an organization of 30,000 people, and I was a part of her organization. I knew she would be seated at the head of the table. It was her meeting. And so I didn't want to sit close to her, so I took a spot far away from that leader. And so people started to trickle into the room. The women executive walked in. She took the spot that I thought she would. And then the whole boardroom was filling up. And as more people came in, the seats at the board table were taken. There were only 14 seats at that table, and I had one of those spots. And so more people came in, and they started to take positions or the seats that were on the periphery of the room. There were additional chairs in the back of the room. So people started to seat themselves, and the meeting got started. And as we went about the meeting, immediately my gaze went to the door, and I saw another very accomplished executive walk into the room. And he was somebody that I admired, I had great respect for, and again, somebody that I barely got to interact with because he was so high up. So as I saw him, I recognized that there were no seats at the board table. So I suddenly instinctively got up and I gave my position or my spot to this executive. And he graciously accepted the spot. Then I walked away and took a spot in the back of the room. And then the meeting went great. And in fact, I had the opportunity to add more value in the discussion and I fielded many questions. So I was happy with how I showed up and how I brought my confident self to the room. And so everything was wonderful. The meeting ended great. And then as people started to trickle out of the room, that women executive, as she was making her way out, she deliberately walked close to me. And I knew she was a woman of few words. And in that moment, she looked at me dead in the eye. And she said to me, "Next time, Megha, I want you to be taking the spot with the big boys at the power table. I don't want you hiding in the back. You need to be here up in the front. And you never give your spot to anybody." And then she smiled and she walked away. And in those few words, she had said a lot to me. And I was still trying to unpack what that meant. So that day, I dug into my own feelings and my beliefs. And I said, what did she truly mean? And what drove my behavior of giving that spot in the boardroom? And as I explored my beliefs, on the surface, it became clear that I had respect and admiration for this leader. So some of my behavior was driven out of respect. But when I truly dug into the core and got to the core of it, what I found was I actually didn't feel like I belonged in the room. I didn't feel like I was worthy of being there with the powerful folks. I felt like I didn't have enough years of experience, that I needed to have more gray hair on my head to feel like I could be at that power table. And so it had nothing to do with really respect or admiration. It was my own lack of self-worth that was going on within me. And in that moment, it just dawned on me that I've been living with that lack of self-worth. And the fact that I was invited into the room, the fact that I had the same title as many other people in that room, it was a true statement that I deserved to be there. Yes, I was younger. I was the youngest kid on the block, but so what? I had worked hard all my life to be there. Why would I sell myself short? And so that was the biggest takeaway or the biggest lesson that I took from that brief encounter I had with that executive. And so from that point on, you know how I showed up next time when I was invited to the boardroom? I was again early to the boardroom. I took a spot on the boardroom table right next to that women executive or any other top executive that was at the table, because this time I was not intimidated. This time I believed I deserved to stay there and be with the power kids, right? And so that's how I started to play, and that's how you play big. We don't have to sell ourselves short. And that was the big moral of the story. And that's why I talk about this topic, because I know all of us deal with these limiting beliefs, with these self-biases that come in all different shapes and forms. And so today I want to share with you a few tips and tricks that you could apply in your life as you're unpacking these biases that you exert upon yourself and be better and play big. Let's dive into the strategy I have for you. It is very simple. It's a 2-step process. Okay? So the very first step in the process is we have to start with self-awareness. Self-awareness is at the core of how we show up. It is the innate beliefs or thoughts that we have that then drive the feelings or emotions we experience. And that's the reality. Our brain triggers a lot of neurotransmitters and chemicals that then makes us experience different emotions, whether it's stress, whether it's fear, whether it's guilt, whether it's a feeling of lack or confidence, right? And then as these thoughts trigger these emotions or beliefs, they then make us act and show up in different ways. So there is this indisputable continuum of thoughts, feelings, and actions. And we have to remember that always, because we cannot just go straight to changing our behaviors. We have to change the thought. And it starts with self-awareness of being more aware of how are we showing up? How are we making decisions? And how are the behaviors that we are taking, what are they driven by? And as you observe yourself in those moments where you feel less than complete, where you feel underconfident or fractured, in those moments, ask yourself, what is the thought that I'm telling myself? What is that core belief? Go back to that. And that is what self-awareness is. And so once you have that self-awareness, then we move to step number 2, which is self-regulation. And self-regulation is about first having the awareness of what that weak thought is, and then regulating ourselves to replace that weak thought with a more powerful thought, right? So in those moments, if my weak thought that I was telling myself, my belief was, I am not enough because I don't have many decades of experience, I could replace that thought with a more empowered thought, which is, no, I deserve to be here. I have worked hard to earn this position, to have this title, no matter my age. Who cares about age, right? So the moment I replaced that weak thought with a powerful thought, I had a very different emotional reaction in my body, and it made me act in a very different way. And so that's really it. It's as simple as that. You have to change your thought, and that'll drive your feeling, and that'll change how you show up. So the 2 steps I shared with you today is self-awareness and self-regulation. And it's really simple. And last but not the least, I just want to say that I thank you for your presence, and I welcome the opportunity to have a conversation one-on-one with any of the leaders here that are listening that would like to have an open conversation and explore possibilities on how you could be unstoppable, how you could crush those limiting beliefs. There is no better time than now to stop playing small and tap into your zone of genius. With a Boardroom Zen executive coach by your side, experience the game-changing transformation, both internally and externally. Find out more on boardroomzen.com. And thank you for listening to my show. It means so much to me. I'd love for you to subscribe and leave a review on your favorite listening platform. More power to you, and hope to see you soon.